Hi everybody, it's John back here with another model inbox review. Probably don't need to introduce this particular aircraft, but I do want to talk a little bit about this plane because before we go into the actual kit that I'm doing a model of it. The Bristol Type 156 Beaufighter was actually developed from the Bristol Beaufort. It had quite a lot of shared components like the undercarriage and the wings, and the aircraft actually was built on some of the same jigs as the Beaufort so that they could switch production from one aircraft to the other quite easily at Bristol Works. The aircraft entered service with the Royal Air Force in around about very late 1941, and although it was never as fast as the Mosquito, which it shared a lot of the roles with, the Beaufort was a very sturdy, tough, reliable aircraft. And it was well suited to the ground attack role. The aircraft was powered by Bristol Siddeley Hercules radial engines, which gave the Beaufighter a top speed of around about 330 miles an hour. I think it was about that. And it carried quite a useful payload. The Mosquito was restricted to about £4,000, but this thing could carry a torpedo as well as rocket armament, which the Mosquito just couldn't do that. The Beaufighter was also built in two particular versions. This particular one we're looking at here is actually a Mark 1, but they also did a night fighter variant called the NF Mark 1, which had in the early days, the Mark 1F had like an antenna radome coming out the front, and it was quite a crude radar, wasn't very efficient. And later marks of the Beaufighter had a thimble nose cone mounted radar. It was mounted in like an extended nose thimble, if you like, and these were very much better at fighting at night fighters, but they realised that the Beaufighter wasn't really fast enough to do this job, and so the role of the night fighter role for twin-engined aircraft was handed over to the Mosquito. By around about 1943, the Beaufighters were phased out of this role altogether. But the Beaufighter was also built in a different variant called the Mark II, which looked like this. The Mark II was designed and developed to be powered by Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. They were the Merlin 12s, I believe. They're the same engines as powered the Spitfire Mark 5s, and these aircraft were designed to be utilised, but they realised that the demand for the Merlin engines was too high, and the Beaufighter was just standardly fitted with Hercules, which, to be honest with you, it probably performed better in that role anyway. So which kit are we building? Well, we're actually building this one, which is the 1973 release. This kit was released back in 1973, so it's actually 52 years old this year. This is a Type 1 box, and the kit is in their orange range in 3 colour kits. And I've never built this model, and I've built quite a lot of Matchbox models. Obviously, anyone who follows my channel, they know that Matchbox has a bit of it's held a place in my heart because they were so big and easily available for me to purchase when I was a kid. So yeah, but this is the Mark 10 Matchbox kit released in 1973. It's a Type 1 boxing. The sprue colours varied between the boxings. The early generation kits were in these colours, which was like a light sort of grey and a sort of a medium brown and a buff colour for the fuselage. And you can always tell a Mark 1 boxing because the instructions will be in orange. Every kit that Matchbox released in their initial year release for that particular range, the instruction leaflets were the colour of the range that they're in, and the orange range was denoted by the orange colour for the instructions. That's the 1973 release sprue colours. Then in 1979, Matchbox reissued this kit with a new piece of artwork. I prefer this artwork to the original one. It actually has a little bit more of depth to it, and it's a more interesting image. And yeah, you can tell a second generation release Beaufighter kit by this little symbol in the top right hand corner here, 8+, which is the age group Matchbox were aiming at, the 8 and above age group. And the sprue colours changed in this particular kit from green to light grey and the buff colour. So these two colours stayed the same, but they replaced the brown sprue with a light grey sprue. And that was the 1979 release. Then in 1980, this is the example of the kit that I've got. I've got a Type 3 type box release. Again, the same artwork. The only difference really is that they took the 8+ symbol off the top right hand corner of the box. The 8+ symbol isn't difficult to get hold of if you're prepared to wait, but this particular boxing and the Type 1 boxings are far more numerous and easier to obtain. The sprue colours on the 1980 release were changed again. You had like this is actually a medium buff colour, and a black sprue and a green sprue, and this green sprue is a slightly different colour to all the others. The same decals, the Airwaves photo etched sheet, you don't get that in the instruction leaflet in the box, sorry, but you can see the instruction leaflet has changed now to a white photocopied original image of the original Type 1 boxing, and that would have been the same for the Type 2 boxing release as well. You would have had a white instruction leaflet in there as well. Anyway, Revell also repopped this kit in 1993. But they didn't do it until they had the influence over Matchbox kits. Revell didn't release this kit in 1993. They had an influence over the marketing of Matchbox, and they released this kit with this weird sort of German flag colouring bars, and they actually changed the image of the Matchbox logo to more sort of come in form with the German flag colours, the national German flag colours. And also this kit, again, the colours, this was still a three colour kit, but you had the green, and then you had a medium and a light grey sprue rather than a buff grey sprue. And the instruction leaflet was changed again to this more Revell styled Matchbox instruction leaflet. And then in 2009, Revell repopped this kit. This is the original Matchbox kit, but it's all in one colour now, light grey plastic. I think they changed the decals on this kit as well, and you've got the Revell style instructions. So Revell repopped this kit in 2009, and it's never been seen since. The Revell offering is very easy to get a hold of. You can get it on the second-hand market, eBay. It's often sold through Amazon and through online media sales sites. It's not very difficult to get a hold of. And that £10.49 sticker label on there, that's probably what you should be looking at paying for it, not much more than that, but some of them do go for more, and I'll go through that with the options and costs. Anyway, just leave you with a nice image here. This is actually another, I believe this is a Mark 6 Beaufighter in Coastal Command, probably around about mid-1943, maybe 1944. And I just thought it's a nice colour image to show you on the video. Anyway, we'll just pan the camera down quickly now and we'll show you this kit. It's not a very good box, I'm afraid. Got this second hand from somebody I met on eBay who had quite a lot of kits in his stash, and I thought, yeah, I quite fancy that. Let's have a bash at that one. And it's been in my stash for quite a long time. Let's just get this camera sorted out and set up. Here we go. So we've got this. Obviously you can't see the artwork very well, but you saw the artwork on the boxing history. On the side you've got an image of what the kit looks like without any paint, but the decals applied, and there's your 3 different colours. If you include the transparent sprue, I suppose it is 4 different colours really. The kit's serial number is PK103 and it's part of the orange range. You can see there in 72nd scale. And there you go, 3-colour kit. You got some more quite knackered images there, and an image there which I don't think has anything to do with the images that anyone has ever used. And again a repeat, PK103 Beaufighter Mark 10, 1/72nd scale. There you go. On the back you've got a colour guide. Again, it's ripped to hell, but yeah, I'm sure I can get a copy of the colour guide, and you guys can find a copy of the colour guide on ScaleMates. You can probably find photographs of it quite easily on eBay, or just Google it in images search and you'll find there's plenty of images for the colourways on the back. I'll explain what the decal options are when I go through the gun. Let's have a look at this kit and see what Matchbox did with this particular kit. I'll go through the sprues in a minute. Let's just have a look at the instruction leaflet, and I'll show you all of this in a minute. Everything is in this kit, including the stand, which we'll go through in a minute. On the instruction leaflet, so I'll take the decals out and have a look at those in a minute. You've got the white instruction leaflet. That's got the original image of the Type 1 boxing on the front, but the actual image is totally different on the box, which I always thought that was quite interesting. You've got some information there on the bottom. Hercules Mark 12, twin row sleeve valve. Yep, 320 mile an hour. I thought it was a bit faster, but 320 is what they're stating on there. And there's some information there. That's the stats. That's the information about the history of the aircraft. The instruction leaflet is A5, but it opens up to like 3 times its length in A5, 3 times if you like. And on the very first page you've got an icon illustration there which just tells you certain symbols to tell you what to do and how to do it. Then you've got the flow of the construction. This kit goes together in 6 stages. There is an option to have the aircraft fitted with wheels up or down, and it is very basic interior, and the actual detail of this kit is pretty basic, like most Matchbox kits are. The interior comprises of pretty much just 2 bulkhead seats and 2 pilots, and in section 2 you just basically put those into the airframe. Section 3 and 4 you're putting the wings, undercarriage arrangement and the ailerons there into place with the rocket rails, undercarriage doors. All the undercarriage goes in. It's quite a comprehensive undercarriage on the Beaufighter. I thought it was just like a couple of struts dropping down, but there are support struts there as well. Section 5 you're putting the airframe together. An interesting thing about the Beaufighter was that the tailplanes in the original early variants, the tailplanes were level horizontally, but in later variants you had quite a serious amount of dihedral applied to those tailplanes, and also there was a fillet fitted to the leading edge of the tail fin there to increase the aircraft's stability. And yeah, a lot of the earlier variants didn't have those, it just had level tailplanes. The image I've got on the computer at the moment, that aircraft has definitely got level tailplanes, so maybe it's a Mark 1, I'm not sure. Anyway, section 5 you also put in the engines together. The engines on this kit are not great, I'll show you those in a minute when we go through the sprues. And in section 6 lastly you're fitting the ordnance. You can just fit the torpedo if you just want to, but the Beaufighter was certainly capable of carrying all 8 of those rockets and the torpedo. No problems whatsoever, and there's your option there to have the wheels up. Yep, quite nice. So it's quite easy. The other thing I quite liked about Matchbox is they used to put a run of the kits that you could buy at the time of when this kit was released, and in the purple range, which was their smaller kits, you had initially in 1972 you only had 19, but in 1979 there were actually 26. Can you see there? And in the orange range you had 10. and that's the armour range there. You've got another 10 there as well. Yeah, we'll be getting to some of those not too long in the distant future. On the back of the instruction leaflet, you've got a paint call out guide and a little instruction there on how to apply the decals, and there's some paint instructions in different languages, and you've also got a flash, what we called a flash service. A lot of people have asked me, what is a flash service? Well, it's when you've got a part that's either badly moulded or short shot or missing out the kit altogether, you could write off to Matchbox and they would send a part out. Customer service department, we used to call these flash service complaints sheets, and you'd fill out, explain to them which part you wanted, and then they'd send it out to you, because obviously it was their fault it was missing. Anyway, that's the instruction leaflet. On the back you've got some nice colour call outs to paint the various parts as you're building the kit. That's quite nice. Got some more information on some of the kits there. Yeah, that's an illustration of what the kit looks like on the multi-position stand, and that's how you put the stand together. Quite easy. Right, that's the instructions. The decals on this kit, although they're pretty much 45 years old, you're going to look at these and think they don't look very good, but that's just the backing sheet. The backing sheet is actually I don't know if I can peel this off to show you. Yeah, I think I can. The backing sheet is just plumed, if you like, but the decals underneath, they don't look too bad, do they? And the one thing, and I've said this before in the past in my videos, the one thing that you can be sure of is that the quality of decals in Frog kits and Matchbox kits will stand the test of time, and you'll be able to use these perfectly well. The register on them isn't always fantastic. There are a couple of roundels on those side roundels there for the fuselage that I think it could be slightly better, but the rest of them are okay, and they're fully readable. Not an awful lot of decals on Matchbox kits of that era. If you wanted more decals, get the Revel Repop and you'll probably find there's more decals available. This is the multi-position stand. These are quite collectible, and if you don't want to use these in your builds, you can often sell these, and they'll fetch anything from £1 to £2.50 online quite easily. And the Matchbox ones tend to go for the higher rate because they're quite nice, aren't they? They're marked Matchbox, Lindsay Products, and yeah, I quite like that, and they work really well. Anyway, I've got a couple of parts in a bag here because a couple of the parts came off the sprue when I was checking this kit to make sure that it was complete, but they're not damaged, which is great. So I've just popped them into a little plastic service bag, if you like, just to make sure that I don't lose any, and we'll have a look at the other two parts in a minute. But first of all, let's have a look at the transparency sprue, and that, let's try and pull that away a little bit. That isn't too bad, is it? It's not fantastically clear, but it isn't too bad. I think it's clearer than the camera's making it out to be. And you've got two domes and a cockpit canopy that goes over the top. And yeah, it is. It's showing it's quite clear, isn't it? And you'll see an awful lot of detail, or lack of detail, that the Matchbox kit has through that canopy. And the framing on it is quite nice as well. We'll have a look at the green sprue first, but I'll just take these two parts out as well so I can show them to you guys. One of them, well, actually you don't need to show any of them because you've got repeats on the sprues. The green sprue is the one that has the fuselage halves on it. And the first thing I want to say about these parts is they're very typical Matchbox. There's no rivet detail on there whatsoever. Oh, bless me, sorry about that. Oh, sorry. I get a touch of hay fever occasionally. If somebody's been mowing the lawn, I know about it. The surface detail on this is pretty bereft. There's no rivet lines. There are some pretty chunky recessed panel lines there. But I'm sure if you use a primer or you use 2 coats of paint, it will fill quite a lot of that up anyway. The engine cells there again, yeah, the collector rings there, not a lot of detail on there. Undercarriage, yeah, it's a typical Matchbox kit with pretty basic detail on the model altogether. The black sprue, which is the upper wing half sprue, you've got the tail planes here, which are quite nicely detailed, but again you've got those thick recessed panel lines. Yeah, they are a bit of a nightmare. The pro builders, they usually quite like Matchbox kits, except for the odd 1 or 2 howlers they produced, but they do have a disdain for these heavy, thick, recessed panel lines. But they always offer the same advice: prime the kit and prime those lines before you prime the rest of the kit, and you'll find that they won't disappear, but they will look a lot better on your finished model. Undercarriage doors there, you've got little bumps on the undercarriage bay doors, which is quite nice. They're okay. The torpedo there, not bad. Undercarriage, it's pretty bereft of detail, isn't it? There's not a lot there. And again, the wings, yeah, not too bad. Not a lot of parts in this kit either. And this is the light buff stroke white sprue. It looks white, but it's actually light buff. It's a very, very, very creamy sort of tone to it. The 2 parts I've got off the sprue, one of them is the other propeller and the other one is one of the undercarriage doors. But as you can see, you know, these parts, they're pretty basic, aren't they? Exhaust there. Can I get that out a little bit more so I can get some of that detail in? There we go. My phone camera doesn't like picking up stuff when it's confused by the box behind it. The undercarriage bay there, yeah, not a lot of detail in there. I think other companies do detail a lot better than Matchbox. But Matchbox were never really renowned for detail, were they? They were always quite basic, well engineered and easy to assemble models that actually had an outline that was pretty accurate. The engines there, there is a twin row of engines there, but they're not fantastically defined. But you won't see a huge amount of there through the aperture of the front of the engine cowling anyway. The rocket rails, again, they're pretty basic. And the actual bulkheads for the seats, yeah, they're pretty basic as well. They're just slabs, aren't they? And the pilots, your typical Matchbox guys. I haven't spoken to a mate of mine in Birmingham, Al Wood, but he loves these guys. He thinks they're really good. I prefer the Airfix fellas, but they're all right. They paint up quite nice, and they are quite detailed for, you know, pilots and 72nd scale. So anyway, that's the parts. Not a lot to write home about. And what I'll do very quickly is, actually, let's just pop this back in here because I don't want to lose this prop. I've got a prop and an undercarriage door there. Let's put these transparencies back in this little plastic bag I've got here, and then I know I won't lose them. Because getting parts for these kits, you have to go through Revell now, and I don't think Revell have released this kit for a long time. So yeah, that's that. We'll just pop the decals back in here so I can keep them relatively level. And then what I want to do is I want to pop that on the bottom because that's a pretty flat sprue, and then pop all this back in here so I can make sure that everything stays in the box. There you go. Oh God. There we go. Put that into there. And put that little bag between that screw and that screw. There we go. Bit of perseverance and you can get them in. Anyway, I can't even show you a decent image because there isn't one on this box, which is a shame. Can I show you that one? Yeah, that's quite a decent image, isn't it? Anyway, Let's get this video closed down by going through the GUMP, and then we can explain a few about options and costs that are available. The kit we're doing the inbox review on today is a Matchbox Bristol Beaufighter TF Mark 10. Its serial number is PK103 and the Revell repop was 40103. The original release date was 1973, but the kit I've got is a 1980 release, and it's released in 1/72nd scale. There are decals for two options. The first is a Bristol Beaufighter TF Mark 10 serving 254 Squadron Royal Air Force Coastal Command, based at Northcotes in 1942 to 1945. The second is a Bristol Beaufighter TF Mark 10 serving 144 Squadron Royal Air Force Coastal Command at Dalakey in Scotland in 1944 to 45. Now, there are 23 parts on a green sprue, 20 parts on a light buff sprue, 14 parts on a black sprue, and 3 parts on a clear sprue, totaling 60 parts in total. Now the problem with that is that I haven't included the 2 parts loose I had in the bag, so in actual fact there's 62 parts in total. The dimensions of the kit are 6.75 inches long by 10-inch wingspan, and it should sit about 2 inches high on its undercarriage. Now the options and costs are for 1/72nd scale kits in all marks, but I haven't included in any other scales, and there aren't that many actually. The standalone kits, there are a few, but not as many as people might think. The original standalone tools, the Airfix Beaufighter TF Mark 10 1958 tool, which is the first generation kit that was released by Airfix. These models they're quite easy to obtain actually, and they go for between anything from £5 up to £60. Yeah, somebody actually paid £60 for a Type 1 bag kit last year. Airfix also did a Beaufighter and a BF109 G6 dogfight double set, and that can usually be purchased for about 20 to 25 quid. Airfix also released a D-Day set comprising of the 58 tool Beaufighter, the 72 tool Mosquito, which was a Series 3 kit, the 59 tool Hawker Typhoon 1B, and the 74 tooling Series 2 North American P51D Mustang. These kits are all in one box, so you get 4 aircraft in one box, and they're marked D-Day commemorative set, and they retail for between £30 and £35. Airfix also retooled the Beaufighter TF Mark 10 in 2015, and those kits can be found for about £15 to £27. And they also did a Beaufighter TF Mark 10 and an FW190A8 dogfight double. In both of these are newer tooled kits, and those kits can be purchased for between £15 and £21. Now Frog did a couple of boxings of this kit. The first was an NF Mark 1 Beaufighter with an F6C option and a TF Mark 10 option. Those retail for anything between £8 and £21, and they're quite easy to get hold of, and they're not bad kits. They also did another boxing of an Australian variant of a Beaufighter Mark 21, which retails for about £9 to £30. Hasegawa did a really nice Beaufighter. It's probably not as good as the new tool Airfix Beaufighter, but it's certainly probably better than any of the others. And they did a number of different boxings. They did a Mark 1, a Mark 6, a TF Mark 10, a TT Mark 10, and a Mark 21, all in individual different boxings for about £30 to £50. And Hasegawa also did a twin aircraft set of a Beaufighter Mark 10 and a Spitfire Mark 9C for about £36 to £40. These aren't that easy to get hold of, but they're not impossible, and it's just a matter of waiting until one comes up for sale. High Plains models do a number of kits, all in individual boxings, of a Beaufighter Mark 1C, a Beaufighter Mark 1F, an NF Mark 1 and an NF Mark 1F. These kits, they're not very easy to get hold of, but some go for as little as £11 and some sell for about £52. They also did a Beaufighter Mark II, which was the Merlin engine powered variant, for £20 to £25. Matchbox offerings of TF Mark 10, they retail for anything between £7 and £31. And there's a company called Polystil, and I think they're in Poland, and they do a standalone kit for Beaufighter Mark 1F. Got no details of prices on that, but it's probably around about 20 quid as well. Now, a number of these boxes have been kits have been reboxed by other companies. There's a company called AJA Gomix, which is often called Kinetic, and they rebox the Frog kit, the Beaufighter, for £12 to £20. You can also get the Airfix 58 tool from Airfix by Craftmaster for about £15 to £22, and the same price would probably apply to the Airfix Corporation of America's version of the 58 tool Beaufighter kit. Airfix Lodella also did the 58 tool Beaufighter kit. Again, probably about £15 to £22 if it came available. And and there's a company called Actimare who did a reboxed Frog kit, and again, I've got no pricings available on that, but you probably wouldn't have to pay any more than 20, I wouldn't have thought. Hasegawa Frog, they did the Beaufighter and F Mark 1, F6C, and the T Mark 10. They were all reboxed Frog kits for £15 to £26. Hobby 2000 did a Beaufighter Mark 1C, a Mark 1F, a Mark 6C, and a Mark 6F. They were all reboxed Hasegawa kits for £25 to £30. And Hobby Boss 2000 also did a Beaufighter Mark 1C under Mackie MC202 Folgore twin aircraft set, which were both reboxed Hasegawa kits for £25 to £30. I'm not quite sure of the MC202 whether that was an Italeri kit or whether it was a Hasegawa kit or whether it could have been the Frog kit, because I'm sure Frog and Frog and Italeri did those two kits of that aircraft as well. Corpac did a reboxed Frog kit, the Beaufighter, for £10 to £20. MPM Production did a reboxed Hasegawa kit of a Beaufighter Mark 1, a Mark 6 and a Mark 21. No pricings available on that. Mia did a Beaufighter reboxed Frog kit, no pricings on that. Model Hobby did a Beaufighter Mark 21, which was a reboxed Frog kit, no prices on that. Novo also reboxed the Beaufighter from Frog for about £10 to £25. Plasti Airfix reboxed the 58 tool of the Beaufighter TF Mark 10, no pricings available on that. The Revell repop of the Matchbox kit goes for £20 to £34. And then the Frog kit was reboxed by a couple of companies. Southfront did a Mark 6 and a Mark 21 in individual boxes, and that no prices available on that, but UPC also did a Beaufighter reboxed Frog kit for 25 quid. Conclusions. Well, again, it's your typical Matchbox kit with basic detail and chunky recessed panel lines. The engines are pretty basic and the interior is very basic, but it does have nice decals, and as usual, the plastic is pretty flash free. Never built the Matchbox Beaufighter, so I'm looking forward to giving this kit a good go. That's the inbox review for this model. I hope your projects are running smooth. If you have any queries, questions, just pop them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for joining me, and I'll speak to you for the next one. Bye bye.